Hi, welcome to this episode of Post ITC Reflection. And today I got Mr. Entrepreneur himself, Mr. Podcast, Mr. Influencer, Mr. Texas, and Mayor James Benham. How are you, sir?
What's up, Jeff Chief? Good to see you, brother. Again, since I
Yeah,
just saw
man.
you.
So I know how hard you work running multiple companies, doing podcasts. I am just trying to keep up. If I get tired, I ask myself, what would James Benham do? And I said to myself, yes, tough it up.
That's right, man. You just gotta suck it up, Buttercup.
James, tell the audience who you are, and then let's jump into it. We can talk about ITC.
Yeah. So James Benham, CEO of JBKnowledge and Terra, 280 employee group of people that do professional services, enterprise software development and data services and managed maintenance of older applications for carriers, TPAs, brokers, PBMs, ancillary service providers. We've been doing that 23 years. Started in my dorm room right here in beautiful College Station, Texas, at Texas A&M, a long time ago, back in '01. And for the last few years, after selling a different product company that we started, we got into the core system space. So we have a product called Terra. That's a core system claims and policy administration for workers' compensation first organizations. And so we just geek out on technology all day. I'm the host of the InsurTech Geek podcast. I'm fortunate enough to be a governor's appointee of Governor Abbott here in Texas. I'm on the Board of Regents of Texas Southern University. I'm a proud alumni of Texas A&M University, and was on city council, was mayor pro tem of College Station, did all kind of fun stuff in politics. But that's a little bit about me. And if you are on LinkedIn with me, I'm an airplane pilot, and I'm obsessed with flying airplanes, and so I get to do that as well. It's all kinds of fun. ITC. It was good catching up with you there.
Is that it? I mean, what about all that little things you do? The content creator journeys.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wrote a book called Be Your Own VC, 10 Bootstrapping Principles, Generate Cash and Keep Control. And we've done a whole series of bootstrapped entrepreneur and innovator interviews. Chapter 8 of my book was all about bootstrapped innovation inside of a large insurance companies. And so I pulled some great examples from there. So we do that on LinkedIn, do a ton of video work. I mean, my video crew is super busy. And certainly with 20 plus speeches and all the film that comes off of those, and all the interviews, we get a lot of footage. And then the podcast InsurTech Geek does 26 episodes a year interviewing innovators at insurance companies. So it's a blast, man. I mean, we have 6 core values at JB Knowledge. Number 6 is enjoy the ride and geek out. And so I try really, really hard to do that every day. And I've got an amazing team of 279 other people here at the company to do it with.
Unbelievable. If you ever find yourself tired, think about what James Benham's doing and get yourself back up and keep going. By the way, can I go on record? Can I go on record and request your book with a signed copy, little love notes? Can I get it? I'll
I'll give
text
you,
you my
yeah,
address and then it'll
yeah,
go on here.
yeah. Text it to me, and I've got copies here. I'll write a little sweet nothing, a little whisper in your ear, a little love note. I'll got a little honey on a little honey drizzle for your eardrum. And then I'll send that over to you, Jeff. It's all good.
All right. Now that's out of the way. Thank you for the introduction. Let's dive in. Okay. No orders needed. Give me your feedback. And how many days were you there at ITC?
Well, I was at National Comp, which is in the same building at the same time.
Nobody
So
talked about that one yet. That was crazy, like how they're
yeah,
together. Why don't you
yeah.
talk about that one?
National Comp is used to be called National Work Comp and Disability Conference. Now it's just called National Comp. It's typically in Vegas every November. They did it in October in the Mandalay, in the same, like, literally just same floor, different sides. Next year they're moving it to Nashville. So this is not going to happen again. But there's two big national work comp conferences, one called WCI in August in Orlando, and this one, National Comp, next year will be in Nashville and Nashville in November. They're both work comp focused conferences talking about not just innovation. They're not technology specific, although there's a lot of technology topics. Talking about driving better outcomes for claimants and for employers and workers' compensation. And I got to exhibit there. I got to lead a panel there, got to speak, and did a bunch of networking, hung out with a bunch of great workers' compensation insurance people. And a lot of people double dipped like me, so they went straight to ITC the next day. National Comp started on Monday, and ITC, I think the exhibition started officially on, maybe it was Wednesday. I don't remember exactly. All the days kind of blur together. But I spoke at ITC and did a session. I was session moderator for a really fun session on claims, because I've spent a lot of my 20 years in insurance in the claims side of the house. And we had a fantastic conversation on claims, and got to go and walk the trade show floors, see all the other technology providers and hang out with them, and do all the fun networking and receptions and all the things that make ITC when you get to geek out with tens of thousands of other geeks. It's pretty fun. So for me, it was a double dip, two speaking engagements. I think I had two podcast interviews, two media interviews, and it was just go that whole week. And then I had to get back because I actually had a board meeting for the university I'm on the board of on Thursday the 17th. So I had to fly back late Wednesday night, the 16th, so I could get to the board meeting. So I didn't get to do the full ITC experience. I got to do a partial, and it was as fantastic as it always is.
Does Governor Abbott have a private plane for you?
Not for me. No. Governor Abbott has a private plane for himself. That is the governor. The state of Texas has a fleet of vehicles. I fly my own airplane that I own and operate. So that's
nice.
Yeah. So
That's a nice perk.
I do not use state resources for that. That is that's a personal thing. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to be able to fly
What kind
yourself
of plane do you
around.
have?
Oh, well, we won't talk about that here on the podcast. It's a lot of fun. It flies real well and gets me around. So
James,
it's
what are the chances for every 1,000 interview I get to do, I get to ask that question?
yeah, right. I do have a really fun setup though. I just got it, but I added podcasting equipment to my cockpit so that I can actually record 4K video and get live audio straight off of the microphones. I am going to do a podcast from the cockpit in the very near future. So I'm really excited about that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can show me your pilot skill one day. Looking forward to that day when we're hanging out and maybe at an Aggies game.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I've got almost 2,000 hours of flying, about 1,500 landings and 7 ratings. So I've been very busy on flying. I like to be well qualified and well certified. So it's a fun hobby to have.
Random, best place for Texas barbecue in Texas.
Texas Monthly Magazine publishes a wonderful list of barbecue places every year. It's Texas Monthly. I think it's top 100, maybe it's top 10 that they really talk about and deep dive on. In my town, we have a wonderful place called Fargo's that makes the best beef ribs I've ever had in my life. In Texas, everything is based on brisket, and I would peg Texas barbecue against any state's barbecue any day of the week. And I've gotten to travel all over the world. I've had barbecue all over the world. It's just hard to touch. The only people that I would say can really give Texas barbecue a run for the money are Argentinians, because they really know beef, and they've got it going on down there. So I'd say Fargo's is my main place here. Out in the hill country, probably Cooper's. A lot of people would say in Austin, they used to say Franklin's. Now that's too popular, so they've moved on. My favorite place in Austin is called La Barbecue. It's a fusion of Mexican and Texas barbecue. It's spicy. Brisket's really, really, really good. And but there's Lockhart is supposedly the barbecue capital of Texas, and I'm a big fan of Kreitz Market and Chisholm Trail and Black's Barbecue there's just a lot of, you cannot go wrong as long as you're eating a fatty brisket and a good beef rib. You're probably going to be all right.
I have to come down there one day and we do a live eating some Texas barbecue podcast. But
Nice.
get back to ITC, I'm sure all these audience sitting here is like, what are they talking about? What trend did you pick up from this year?
It's more obsession over AI, but I'm picking up on people pivoting off of, like, everyone has text summarization now.
Yeah.
And because that's easy. And what we're starting to see is people pivoting into much more pragmatic use cases. And so I was
Mhm.
really pleased to see, like in our discussion on claims, we all talked about things we're actually using in production. And so I would say for me, trending wise at ITC, and at National Comp, is we're talking about AI in production, not AI in beta, not AI in pilot, but AI in production. And when we're talking about AI in production, we're talking about really pragmatic tools that are legitimately reducing workload on adjusters and underwriters and helping us make better decisions. And so you see things like, it's always the boring meat and potatoes stuff that makes a big hit, right? Like on medical bills, which is a big deal in insurance, the ability to deduplicate medical bills, summarize them, and then start providing treatment recommendations based on what you're reading. Like, that's really cool, and that's in production now. And so there's some really cool things you can do that I think are really pragmatic. And I'd say a while ago it was like the low code, no code, quote unquote, revolution. And of course now people are just hiring developers to build on these supposed low code platforms. So maybe we're coming to the realization that it helps having an engineer mind build something. But definitely seeing the other trend is we still have a lot of solutions. We still have a lot of point solutions. And so that's just something that we have to come to grips with as an industry, is how to integrate all these point solutions together that are out shopping around. But we're seeing way more pragmatic use of technology. We're starting to also see, and this will be reflected, I think, in next year's ITC, is that the venture capital space is coming out of its cold winter that was really initiated 2.5, 3 years ago by the collapse of crypto. We had a crypto winter, which really became a VC winter. And it wasn't just the crypto winter; it was because of Silicon Valley Bank collapsing, sent shockwaves through the entire venture capital community. And we've seen what, 2.5, 3 years now of significantly lower funding. And I think that we're starting to bend out of that. And I think you're going to start to see some newer funded ideas coming into the market next year. So I definitely noticed that there was something around that, because it's more difficult now to raise your A rounds and so. No, look, you're talking to a bootstrapper, so those are things that I trend against hard, but I definitely do follow the entrance into the markets.
Thoughts on what you just said. 2020, 2021, we had the cheap interest rate, and we also had the specs, right? All the spec IPO. So you have like the perfect storm
It
of
was.
easy specs, go to market public traded company route, not disclosing your losses. And then you have the low interest rate for cheap capital to fuel that. And then
Plus,
also,
plus the ICOs, the initial coin offerings that were
yeah,
happening at the same time.
plus the yen carry. Are you familiar with the yen carry? So if you're bored later, look up yen, which is a Japanese currency, carry, CARRY, and
Hmm.
then go look up videos on yen, reverse yen carry, right? We're in the stage of reverse yen carry. And when the capital was cheap, a lot of people were using Japanese yen to borrow at very, very low interest, pretty much nothing, and then go
Hmm.
invest that money. But this is done at hundreds of billions. Somebody said it's a $20 trillion market effect. And I'm just wondering how much is that playing into the venture world. But who knows? This is probably a little bit bigger than what we saw in the event, right? But one thing I said to myself, right? I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna throw a couple of hot takes at you, and you said, Jeff, that means nothing, or Jeff, that was a good take, right? When I was filming day one, I brought my camera crew there. We had like 4 or 5 people going around. And I said to myself, wow, this is what 72, $78 billion of ITC venture capital money injecting look like. This is the result of it. Everybody here results of that. And when I hear a company like CGI is a company, they have a campus in Fairfax, Virginia, or Herndon, Virginia. They talked about on one of our interviews investing $1 billion into their R&D into AI, and 30% of their capital come from insurance. Revenue come from insurance. So that means all the partners they have will benefit from that. I'm like, are we at some kind of change of era going from InsurTech 2.0 to InsurTech 3.0? That was one of my questions I was asking myself. What are your thoughts?
Well, I didn't. That was a long question. So summarize it.
Yeah, so I was asking myself, are we at the change of InsurTech 3.0 where InsurTech 1.0 direct to consumer replace the agents? InsurTech 2.0 work with agents, work with the community, work with people. And InsurTech 3.0 leveraging AI to get better efficiency out of people. Is this the 3.0?
I mean, maybe if I know people have an obsession with like categorizing people into generations, generation X, Y, and Z, categorizing technology into waves of different waves of tech, web 1, web 2, web 3, InsurTech 1, 2, 3. I don't know if I buy into this. It's all a continual evolution. I mean, right now is definitively the AI wave, whatever version number you want to call it.
Mhm.
We definitely had a web 3 slash web3 was all about what? Crypto. That was at the heart of web3. And let's not leave out the fact that we had a lot of conversations about mixed and augmented and virtual reality, the multiverse, because not the multiverse, the metaverse, sorry. The multiverse is a totally different topic that we can talk about later. We were talking about the metaverse because Facebook pushed Meta, and the reality is it's an interesting toy, but it's not something we're gonna play a lot in insurance. So what we have, Jeff, is a continual evolution. I prefer to think of things in as far as major anchor technologies. Like 1993 was all about starting to use the internet, right? The mid 1980s was about starting to use the personal computer instead of mainframes. Like when you come in, 1999 was all about Y2K conversion and the advent of ERP systems and Y2K upgrades. And then, you have all of these things that continually have evolved, but we are definitively in the middle of the hype cycle on AI. Like that, we're right there, right? We don't talk about crypto as much at insurance conferences. We don't talk about the metaverse at all anymore.
NFT.
We're not talking about NFTs. Like we're not talking about these things. At least I'm not hearing them being talked about anymore.
No.
It's just, you know, people kind of tend to drop that and just focus on how much money they can raise. This is a byproduct of, the funding markets in VC.
Yeah. You're an investor,
Bootstrap
right, James?
Bootstrapper. I'm a limited partner in 4 VC funds, and
Nice.
I'm a direct investor, and obviously I run my own bootstrap company. So I play all sides of the equation.
Want to drop a shout out to all your funds?
Yeah, so I'm an LP in Mercury. That's out of Houston, Texas. I love supporting Texas funds. So Mercury Capital down in Houston, Integrated in Houston. A guy named JR runs that, does a great job down there at Integrated. Also an LP at Parkway Ventures out of New York City. We have some really neat investments that we're in, and also an LP at Capital Factory, which is an incubator and fund in Austin, Texas. So I
That's
went
cool.
heavy and hard on. Imagine that, you call me Mr. Texas. I went heavy and hard on Texas. I kind of shied away from the left coast, and went to Texas, and then jumped in with a New York fund that I'm really excited about, because I just think they're really interesting. They got some interesting ideas. It's also
That's cool.
by the way, I jumped in, I feel like at the right time, because they were doing capital calls and fundraisers right when the market got a lot harder. And so we got really way better terms on those funds that we're in, because I was jumping into a lot of these funds right when it was getting a lot harder to raise money. And so a lot of these funds ended up getting better terms than they would have in 2019, 2020.
That's James, you make such a savvy moves. I'm been so impressed. Every time we talk, I get smarter.
No. So a lot of a lot of timing is luck, but it's all good. I mean, real estate, I've been really focused on the real estate market for a while. I just don't, the asset class I don't like is public stocks. I just don't like it. I don't enjoy it. Don't like it. Stay away from it. I know that people make a lot of money. I also know people lose a lot of money in public stocks. I just tend to stay away from it. I like things that have a little more control over. I love real estate, love technology, certainly love bootstrapping.
Any other takeaway as far as people goes? Anybody you met that made you really impressed?
At ITC, my panel was really, really, really great. I really enjoyed the group, because we were deep diving on a pretty nerdy topic. And I like claims, because people typically don't think claims is sexy, and I think it's pretty sexy. I had Jose Luis Bernal. He's leading MapFree's USA Digital Innovations. He's our chief data and digital officer, and like he's done some really cool stuff with InsurTech's in Spain. He's done some stuff in Mexico and Spain as well. Like he's really worked in carriers all over the world. He brought a lot of international experience, and I don't think we talk enough about international and insurance. I had Max Chi. He's a money guy. He has a venture capital group at Aquiline Capital Partners. He had some wonderful insight, because they have a position in a few different companies that work on claims, which I was pretty excited about. Shane Simonelli, he was also on the panel, and he is the head of claims delivery at Pure Insurance. If you don't know Pure, they focus on residential and auto for high net worth individuals. They have a very unique set of challenges, and so really, really smart. Really enjoyed talking to him. And lastly, Tanner Hackett was CEO is the CEO of Counterpart. They're a management professional liability MGA, and they use a ton of tech in their MGA. He actually co-founded a startup called Lazada that got purchased by Alibaba, and he's done some really, really neat stuff. So like those, honestly, like the people I was most impressed with was my panel, because I was like, man, these people are all really doing cool stuff all over the world in insurance. And we had a wonderful 1 hour discussion. We ran out of time, but it was really great.
I'm trying to add to that. It's hard to add to it because you just went through the list of names, and then I met so many people. I feel like my brain melted on day one.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to limit, like you can definitely hit ITC overload. That's why I like going for a couple days and having a few really great quality select conversations. And I feel like at every conference I go to, you got to try and take like two or three things away from it. It's important, to be able to boil things down so you can remember it and actually do something with everything we learned. It can't just be a fun experience. It's got to be more substantive than that. Like, how are you making, I always challenge myself. Every room that I walk into, I always challenge myself to walk out with 5 new connections on LinkedIn, or 5 new business cards. And so I always like, okay, let's go and meet new people. Let's not, it's good to hang out with old friends, but it's also good to make new friends. And so that's why ITC is really great for building your network and building your friendships.
One thing I was looking at the list of is, if I was an exhibitor here, sponsors, what kind of booth would I build, and how would I do my best to attract attention? And this year, it seemed like everybody put a little bit more energy in decorating their booth and trying to figure out how to attract attention. One guy, he was the only guy that had this in his booth, and I thought was brilliant. He had cold Gatorade in a ice bathtub. And I thought that was brilliant. I was like, all these people sitting around in Vegas dehydrated, they all need their Gatorade.
Gracious. I mean,
My
there's some brilliant booth ideas. You know, at RIMS every year, there's a carrier that does a gigantic sand sculpture, and they take the whole conference to do it. So they pay a team to sculpt the conference the whole time, and it's like it's so good.
That is crazy. I was impressed by Ringba booth, Adam, because I know the backstory because I had dinner with them a couple months ago at the CEO dinner. They spend like close to $1 million, probably, my guess, for everything from booth to the dinner of the event to everything else. And talking to Adam, he just so aggressive. And I was like, man, I need to be in that office just working with him. Every day that guy wakes up, just go into war mode. And I was like, that's what startup founders look like. But he is a long time guy running his company for a long time. And he still got that energy, which is contagious. Anybody else you ran into?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously got to hang out with you. I got to see my good friend Lisa Wardlaw. She was really busy there as well. I got to see her. I got to see Caribou Honig, who's been on my show a couple times. I got to see a good friend from Houston. He's the CIO of Skyward Insurance, who they're killing it at Skyward, like killing it. His name's Dan Bodner, one of the coolest CIOs I've met. Got to see my good friend who's CIO of Slide Insurance, Raul Tadapelli. If you know Raul, he's just a brilliant engineer, thinker, CIO. It's always good to catch up with a lot of really good CIOs there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were a whole bunch of good catch ups. The CIO of Kingston Insurance out of New York, they're having a phenomenal year. They're public. If you go read their financials, they're killing it right now in personal lines property. Her name is Sarah Mikulski. She's absolutely slaying it. She was there for ITC. So it's good, especially when you work for public companies, you can see like if their innovation initiatives are paying off, and in a lot of these clients they are. If you follow what Dan and Rao and Sarah and these other amazing CIOs are doing, it's pretty stellar how they're pulling this all off. And so yeah, definitely got to, yeah, I mean the list goes on. There was with National Comp and ITC being there, it was a huge list of great people.
I played this game with another guest on earlier. I hate to do it to you because
Mhm.
so many of these companies are your clients. But so what we did was I said, hey, if someone will give it to you $100 million and you are the custodian of this $100 million as a fund, and you have to figure out how to build it into a unicorn in short tech, and could be whatever you want to build, what would you build?
If you're putting money into InsurTech, of that magnitude, I would say you would be targeting building an MGA that would want to make a leap to a carrier, right? If you're going to put $100 million into something, I would imagine that you would want to build something that would end up being its own carrier and IPO, right? That's that. So if everything depends on how much money you want to deploy. If you want to deploy $100 million, I would target a really complex space that's filled with legacy players who aren't being very innovative, and I would go build an MGA with goals of being a carrier, probably in the B2B so the commercial lines space, maybe specialty. You know, I would stay away from personal lines and focus on commercial lines. And now look, if it's me, I'm going and building a new aviation carrier that's radically different than anything on the market, because there's only
Well,
like 12 or 30. There's
cool.
only like 12. There's only like 12 or no. Airplanes you sit in. And you can do drone insurance too out of it, but that's again, you're asking a fantasy question of if you have 100 million to deploy. I'm going to want to go and target being a completely new market in the aviation, not an MGA, like a new carrier in the aviation space that's doing things radically differently with their underwriting, and how they select and rate risk. Because I think there's a lot of room to play in that space. There are some that's indicated by some new markets jumping in. So that's probably what I would do. But that's, again, fantasy question, fantasy answer.
All right. Can I give you some softball rapid fire?
Yeah, sure.
Now you got 100 million. You know what you want to build. Who is your CEO, CFO, CTO, and general counsel off the top? And
Oh
COO.
no, I don't know. That's a I don't know. No, no. Remember, I've had the same people I've worked with for 23 years at this company. I have the world's best chief operating officer. His name's Sebastian Costa. I have the world's best CFO. His name is Mauricio. I've got just the most amazing team at this company. You know, Diego and Karina are running policy, and I've got Lourdes running claims, and I've got Sarah running Connect, and man, I've got a killer team here. So no, no, if I'm doing something, if I'm building something, is with my team. I love
No, you don't need draft picks.
no, I don't need no. I got the all stars right now. We've been doing this a long time together. I love working with my team, so that's what I'm saying. Don't make me pick different people. I want my people.
You know, what's funny. I was like, if James picked, it'd be interesting to see who he picked because you have met so many people working
Yeah,
across
yeah.
the aisle from them, working together, and also you had them on your show. So those three interactions, I can't imagine how many people you set across over the
Oh
last
yeah.
couple decades.
Yeah, the 20 years of it. I mean, tens of thousands, right?
Yeah.
It's not a small number. It's a big number, but you know, at the end of the day, I have a strong bias to my own team. I love the hell out of them.
You know, would be interesting if you play this game with them and ask them if you are not here today, which one person in this company would you pick to replace you?
Yeah. That'd be an interesting game to play. Yeah,
Literally have some drinks, have some Texas barbecue, and then just roll right into it. Have all of them in one place.
yeah, yeah. Nah, I wouldn't put him on the spot like that. That's a tough question to make him answer.
Softball.
Yeah.
What do you think next year when we come back 2025? We do the same show, Post ITC Reflections. What do you think we're going to be talking about next year?
I think we're going to talk about some AI companies that didn't make it. I think we'll have some further shakeout. I think we'll talk about some, but you know, I think the core AI platforms. If you're building something, and this is why we build workflow and automation software, not just an AI tool, you have to listen to what the CEO of OpenAI is saying. You have to listen. He's saying if you're building a platform on top of their tech stack, don't be surprised if their tech stack absorbs your feature functionality set, right? Like he didn't say it in those words, but that's what he meant. And so you've got to really look at what's happening. The general AI tools are going to eat up some of the specific functionality that's being built around them as ancillary. You know, there are specific um, legal AI providers that are just doing legal AI, and they're building it on top of a base tech stack. And if you look at what's happening, the general AI systems are getting good enough to review and process contracts and policies. And so I think you're just going to continue to see that shakeout in the AI space. Um, you know, hopefully we'll talk about some more cloud native solutions that are true cloud, not fake cloud. And I think that would be something that'd be nice to see as well next year. You're starting to see what some of the big mainline core systems force their clients into cloud migrations, but it's really lift and shift
Explain that,
is
deep dive into
it's
that, like fake
it's
cloud.
really well we don't have time to deep dive. I mean this this is a short podcast. We don't have that kind of time, but you know, fake cloud versus real cloud is architecting and building a platform explicitly to be cloud enabled rather than lifting and shifting a physical system into virtual servers in the cloud. That's really what you're seeing still today is so many of these legacy systems just lifting and shifting to say they're cloud based and that really they're just hosting it on Azure on virtual servers instead of re-engineering and re-architecting their solution. So when we built Terra, we went ground up cloud native. Like we architected it and built it for the cloud rather than just lifting and shifting old code and into virtual servers on Azure.
Man, you don't bring thoughts, you bring content. I like it. Where do you
Yeah.
think a year from now, I look at insurance as three media, right? Legacy media, InsurTech Media, which is we sell InsurTech Insights, InsurTech Connect. They tell stories, right? They tell stories from the vendor side for the attendees to hear. And then there's a creator media, right? Creator media, you are one of the first OG to step into that shoe. Where do you think creator media will be a year from now?
Man, we probably have too many podcasts. You know, Apple really, people don't know that Apple really hosed a lot of podcast numbers. They changed the way the Apple Podcast app worked. And, 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 and so there's some interesting shakeout that's been going on in the podcasting space because of it, because the listener numbers are so much lower at so many people, because the people's Apple Podcast app is not automatically downloading episodes if they aren't listening to it actively, and that change really kind of caused a dip in numbers. But more than that, there's more content options than ever, and there's more people trying to be content creators or thought leaders. I'm not a fan of just being a content creator. I think you need to, like, there was a time when I sold SmartBid in 2018 and I was still doing a whole lot of podcasting and speaking in the construction space. I had a very, very popular podcast there called The Content Crew that I started 9 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, 9 years ago, with two amazing guys, added a third guy. We killed it, man. We had like 250,000 listens a year on the podcast. We had our
That's
own
strong.
we had our own 5-city road show that we did every year, that about 120 people per city would come just pay to hang out with us for the day and soak in construction tech knowledge. I mean, we did it up for years, and that podcast still exists. My co-host took it over. He's doing a great job, because when I sold SmartBid, I kept doing this in construction for another couple of years afterwards. And when I wasn't building, I had a non-compete when I sold SmartBid, so I wasn't building another solution for construction. And my other business, JBKnowledge, was outsourced development for insurance. And you know, there was a time for about 2 years where I was just a thought leader and content creator in construction, and I didn't have my own product in the space anymore. And to be honest, it felt kind of empty just doing that without, because I'm a builder. I like to make stuff. Like, I like to make things. Like, the thing I love is, today I came in the office today and Sebastian and Mauricio and I talked about the product. Like, we talked about what we're building and what we're doing, what the customers are saying. And I had demos today. I had a couple big demos today. Like, and we're thinking about what we can add and what we don't. Like, that creative process then gets me super jazzed up to go and do today I slammed out 2 podcast interviews today. And, I did 2 speeches last week plus 2 podcast interviews last week. I'm jazzed up about it because I'm in the act of making some cool product that actually solves real problems in insurance. And so my challenge is that, like, the way that my brain is wired, I like to build things. And so to answering your question, like, I think that we're going to continue to see some really good content creators kind of rise to the top. And some of my favorites are, and you're a baller, man. Like, you built a real insurance business. Like, one of the things I love about you is that you are an operator. Okay. You're an operator. Like, you have run a legitimate business in insurance, and you know what you're doing. And I have spent 23 years running a legitimate insurance technology business. Like, so I think it's the kind of what I like to see in the content space is people who are the makers, the doers, the builders, rising to the top on content as well.
For the record, I am just as big fan of you. So if we ever get to build something, 5:47 p.m. Eastern time, 10:22, we stamp that. Like, if we ever path come across, do not hesitate.
Yeah, thanks.
I have a different take on content creation, though.
Tell me.
I actually think there's not enough content, and I'm pretty bullish on what we're building here. But outside of myself, like, some of the numbers I've seen for legacy media charge for, like, newsletter, magazines, email subscription and sponsorships. And I think at one point we'll see a shift into InsurTech medias and creator medias. I don't know when, but I think it's happening soon. I'll just put that thought in there. And go back to earlier, you said you ran into people you like enjoying seeing, Lisa Warlow, myself. There's so many great people in insurance. Lisa Warlow is like somebody super impressive. I need to get her on the podcast and just say, hey, what are your reflection of ITC? What's new for you? What other events you got coming up next year? Oh, you're on mute.
Next year, I've got an event next week, man. I'm keynoting the Risk Management Institute, ERMI. They have a risk conference in San Diego. So Sunday, I'm flying to San Diego to go
Wow.
to go hit up a risk conference. I'm busy, brother. I gotta roll Sunday. So that's gonna be in San Diego, and then my West Coast tour continues the week after on November 7th. I'll be in Sacramento, California, or as Schwarzenegger would have said, Sacramento. I'll be over there in Sacramento, and I'll be the keynote of the California Self-Insured Group's annual convention. And then the next week after that, I'll be at a private client meeting that's going to be over on the East Coast, and then I finally get to lay up for a little bit of oh no, then I have another conference in Dallas Fort Worth after that, and then I have a week off for Thanksgiving, and then I'm supposed, it's just it just keeps rolling. Then Future of Insurance Canada is December 11th and 12th. I'm a speaker there. It's going to be a sprint until Christmas. I get a week off for Thanksgiving.
Impressive.
Nah, it's
James,
just you just got to hustle and grind, brother, man. Look, business doesn't happen on its own. You got to get out and hustle.
that's crazy. Like, I see CEOs and founders out there have assistants doing their calendar, have
Mhm.
like people taking their opening intro conversation. Like you out there doing every single thing yourself, like front line. So that's awesome.
Well, I have an amazing support team behind me, but I do not have an executive assistant. I do not have a secretary. I do not. I just look. My partner and I do not believe in that. We check our own emails. We schedule our own meetings. We handle our own business. And but we have amazing support people. I have a great chief admin officer, Mauricio. Then I've got a great head of sales, Enrique. I've got wonderful people, that make this ship run on time. But no, I think that you've got to take your work seriously, but not yourself. You look at those kind of tasks, like, half of an EA's time is usually scheduling. Well, you can solve that with Calendly. There's a lot of tools that you can solve without having to hire a person. That kind of personal helper stuff, it's a boost to the ego, but it's really not that practical. And especially if you have people that are handlers, I just don't want to be handled. I don't want people trying to get between me and my employees that want to talk to me. Any one of my 280 people, if they want to talk to me, they just message me on Teams. My clients all have my cell phone. If they want to talk to me, they just text me. Like, it's not that complicated.
So you guys use Teams for internal?
Oh yeah, hell yeah. Office 365 all the way. We're a Microsoft Azure .NET Teams. Absolutely, absolutely.
I recently went on Discord. I don't think I can go back.
I've used Discord for like gaming chats and stuff, but like
Are you
I'm I
gaming?
s- dude, I suck at gaming. Like I've tried so many times to play online like MMORPGs and stuff, and like I am terrible. Like when I play shooter games, I get demolished. I mean, I'm just not any good at it. So Discord is popular with gamers. I love Teams. I know people love Slack, people love Discord, but I'm a Teams guy.
I do a little bit both. But yeah,
All right,
James,
man.
I really appreciate you coming on and thank you for giving the reflection of ITC.
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate you, Jeff.